Welcome to a quick course video showing you how to record SMP using the quick SMP method in Sage 50 Payroll. So as an alternative to entering maternity through the SMP button on the employee's record, we could use the quick SMP method. Select your relevant employee and then go to Employee Tasks and Recording Maternity. On the left-hand side here, we're going to populate down with some dates and tick boxes there. And what that will do is on the right-hand side, that's going to show us whether our employee is entitled to maternity pay, and if they are, what entitlement they're actually due. So let's start by putting in the expected date of birth. So as you can see, as soon as I've put that in there, on the right hand side here, the system is now showing us whether our employee is entitled to maternity pay, and if so, what the entitlement is. And the very first thing that it is highlighting to us is that we need the medical evidence. We've not ticked the box here to say that there's medical evidence been received, and until that point, we won't be allowed to process any maternity pay for our employee. So that medical evidence is the MAPB1 form, typically, that's given to the employee around about the 20-week mark or so. The midwife or the doctor will give them the signed form for the MAPB1, and that will give you the relevant information in there. It will usually give the expected week of birth as well, so that's where you'll usually get that date from there. So if we tick that to say that our employee has received that, as you can see then now, the system is updated, it's happy that that evidence has been received, and it's going to then look at whether our employee has worked here long enough, pulling through the start date from their employee record, and also whether they have earned enough to receive maternity pay. We'll talk about that in a second, but the system obviously is showing there that it has, and that means that our employee is entitled to maternity pay. So the next thing to put in is your employee's last day of work. So that's the day they're finishing work before they take their maternity leave. As we tab along, you can see now that we fill that in, the system is now calculating their entitlement due. So this is the 39 weeks paid maternity amount that they will get. And you can use this information to reply in any letters that you need to respond, acknowledging their maternity leave and informing them of what their entitlement is. So the next thing to put in, as and when we get there, is the date of birth. Now, if we're doing this in advance, we don't know what that is yet, but that's fine. We can come back and populate that later. We can, if we already know, if our employee has informed us that they're going to take, say, for example, the whole 52 weeks off that they're entitled to, then we could put the return to work date in there. Or if we don't know what that date is yet, we can just leave it blank and then just come back and put it in later. There are some special circumstances that may affect either maternity pay or the maternity leave period and when that starts. So if we just bob into here, we can see that those special circumstances are things like if our employee has been in a trade dispute with us, then any periods of time, any weeks that they've been on dispute will adjust the start date of their employment and therefore potentially when they can take their maternity leave. The maternity leave may also be affected if they have been signed off, for example, for a sickness, a pregnancy-related sickness. So that might be that they've been advised by their doctor to take some bed rest before the baby is due, and in which case we would need to tick this box here. Or it could be that, as often happens, the baby's decided to come a little bit early, and so the maternity will then start because the baby has arrived already. And again, we would tick that box in there. So if we tick either of the boxes for either the sickness or for the baby coming early, there are some other bits that we'll need to do. So if it's the sickness, what we'll have to do is change here the last day of work. If it's due to the baby coming early, then we will need to change, we will need to update the system here, put the date of birth in, and then again we will need to change that last day of work to be the day that the baby was born, and that means the maternity will start the day after. So the next thing then is to check our earnings here. So the system, like I say, has calculated it, and what the system uses is the set period. So it's got the set period in there, and that is 8 weeks prior to the qualifying week. So the qualifying week is 15 weeks before the baby is due. And then the system looks back at the earnings that we've processed for that employee for that relevant period. So in this instance, our employee is paid monthly, and so there are 2 reference periods in there. So the system will add them together and then divide it by the relevant 8 weeks to get an average weekly earnings there for our employee. If our employee is paid weekly, then obviously all those sections will be filled in, all those weeks there, and again the average will be calculated. If you've migrated over to this system and perhaps you don't have any processing history or not enough processing history in there, then you can manually type in the amounts that are in there and just press the recalculate button for the system to be able to calculate that for you. If your employee is going to be sharing their parental leave with their partner, it's just a little note down here to tell you that you have to process that on the employee record. There is a shared parental leave button there, and you can't do that in here. But essentially, we've now entered all the information that we need to enter to be able to process maternity pay for our employee. Just quickly before we bob out of here, I'll just point out that besides the key dates being in a list down there for you, you can actually view them in a diary view, and this is actually quite useful. Because it gives you obviously the important dates, but secondly because it kind of gives like a timeline in a nice format that kind of shows you the different stages of the maternity pay period and maternity leave period, and how those different ones are there, and the colour factors in there just make it a little bit easier for you to see the information that's there. So once we're happy and we've processed all the information that we need to, all that we have at hand at the moment, we can just press save. Then we can close. If we pop onto the employee's record now and go to the absence tab and to the SMP button there, we can see that the system has pulled through all that information that we've entered into this area here. So we've got the initial dates bits there, we've got our calculation there, and then we bob over to the entitlement tab. Now this is quite useful to refer back to because it does show you this top section here will show you, as we process maternity pay through the following weeks and months, how much has been paid or is currently due to our employee. And then down here, again, we've got that full entitlement that was seen on the quick entitlement screen. And that's going to show us then, as we process through, this will ultimately, if our employee takes the full 39 weeks off, then this will total up to the 39 weeks, and this total here should end up being the same total as the one there. Just save that. As we save this record, it automatically always asks you to remember to keep that be1 declaration, and just say OK on there. And so at any point, as we progress through the leave period and our dates are achieved, we can come back into here and enter things like, for example, the day the baby is actually born, or the day that the employee is coming back to work, when we know when that is there. Alternatively, we don't have to do it through there. We could, again, highlight our employee and just do it on the quick method here, and then we can update those records there. Either way, it keeps the information in both formats. And that's how you enter SMP on the quick entry method. Thank you for watching our video. If you'd like any more information on other courses and training that we offer, either on payroll or on accounting, please pop over to our website. Take a look. Thank you.